Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football.
All right, guys, welcome back. Today, we will be talking about the biggest scandals in football history. We got some pretty big doozies for you. One is very current and not even under investigation yet. L.A. Matthews, let's start with your favorite.
I mean, you can't talk football scandals without talking about the bloated moron that is Sepp Blatter, can you? I mean, he is current. He was the head of FIFA and is now currently on a 6.5-year suspension from football because he was found guilty of sliding money to friends, of financial doping, of sexual assault against an American footballer. Hope. What was her name? Hope something?
Hope Solo.
Hope Solo. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he's been fined 1 million Swiss francs by the body ethics committee for FIFA. He's been formally charged by Swiss authorities for fraudulent and falsifying documents in connection with improper payments to Michel Platini, who, by the way, should also be on this list. I mean, the entire body of governing football, headed by the most corrupt man that has ever walked the planet of the earth. I mean, he makes Italian politicians look saintly. I think my overwhelming memory of Sepp Blatter is Lee Nelson throwing wads and wads of fake cash at him at that press conference for was it the launch of the Qatar World Cup when they announced that? Yeah. And I think that is how history will remember Sepp Blatter, is that image of him with just money flowing absolutely everywhere. It's just he has done irreparable damage to the integrity of our game. And I don't think anybody's ever going to look at, you look at what's going on with Manchester City at the moment with their financial doping allegations and so on and so forth. And all of the fans around the world are looking at the governing bodies, the Premier League, UEFA, FIFA, and going, you should be doing something about this, but I don't trust that you are. And that all stems from this guy. All of the mistrust in the governing body of football comes from that man. I think he is an absolute cancer on the sport, and he's any other answer is just wrong. Sorry, boys.
Qatar probably really shouldn't have gotten that World Cup, to be fair.
No, they should not. Or a football club, but that's a different story.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, LA. It's hard to go anywhere else with that because the amount of damage done globally and on so many different levels. I mean, to get the United States State Department interested in football, soccer in general is a miracle. They couldn't care
was
less.
he investigated by the FBI or the CIA? It was FBI, right?
The State Department, yeah.
Was it the State Department?
Yes, because they were going after the money. That's basically when the United States didn't get the bid for the World Cup. They said, well, how'd that happen? At the top levels, all of a sudden, everybody cared about football, which is, never. But the amount of money missed bothered them. So they sicked the State Department on all of the bank wire transfers going through the islands down in the Caribbean, and essentially found that, all of the smallest countries in the world were receiving payments from Sepp Blatter and or the Qataris, usually the Qataris, I think, to buy the whole World Cup.
The man ran his because it runs a lot like government. They have to be elected, and they do presidential campaigns. And he ran opposed for almost 20 years, and I would assume he got 107% of the votes in every single election. But there's a reason that he ran opposed, and it's because he had every single person in the organization and outside of the organization sitting in his pocket. Another famous example of that is Mr. Warner. This is the Afro-Caribbean representative of one of the CONCACAFs. He was found guilty of the same thing. Blatter had been paying him for years to vote in his favor. It's a treasure trove, and this podcast is not long enough for me to read the Wikipedia page of all of the stupid things that he was found guilty of.
And still will be found guilty
and
of
still
in the future.
Yeah. He's on his second suspension.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next topic because, like you said, I mean, really, we could spend multiple episodes just talking about the
Yeah.
Qatari World Cup bribery scandal that stemmed out in every single country of the world almost. But let's move to the next scandal. I want to use the current Barcelona team specifically. I guess it's Bartomeu's Barcelona, right?
Yeah.
That team, with all the money coming in, Barcelona went and brought in a whole bunch of expensive transfers. We all know about it. Dembele, Griezmann, Coutinho, you're welcome, Scott. Coutinho, all to the tune of like 500 million. Just really poor financial management. Now, on the other side of COVID, when COVID hit, and they lost all that income from match day to television, in addition to the fact that this La Liga television revenue was going down anyways due to the Prem's dominance. In the end, Barcelona ended up in a terrible financial state where they are now over €1 billion in debt. That's not even the controversy. The controversy is because they are in debt, they are not allowed to register players for La Liga the last 2 seasons without doing some crazy book work where they're rearranging salaries, etc. On the way to getting to the numbers being required by La Liga and I guess the Champions League. Has anybody heard anybody say anything from the Champions League about financial fair play in Barcelona?
No, literally nothing.
No, it's a running joke, isn't it?
Yeah, why is it that Manchester City, who deservedly are under investigation for financial doping, are all over the newspapers, but Barcelona is not? And we know for a fact that their wages are much higher than the allowance, or at least were going into the summer of last season. And yet they still brought players in. And sure, these wages might be backloaded, etc. But there's a lot going on there. The levers are being pulled and all that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, they're selling all their TV rights, aren't they?
Yes.
I think
So it's a lot of financial dancing.
I think after COVID, UEFA had some leeway for financial fair play. So I'm not sure if maybe that's how they got away with it.
They may very well have hired Sepp Blatter to do their accounting.
Yeah.
Well, my point is, I think there's a cover up going on between Champions League and La Liga and Barcelona. Not only that, but it is also illegal to run an organized smear campaign against players through your media outlets, which is something that Barcelona has actually been sued for before. And you can't tell me that in the last summer, especially, Fernan Torres, Umtiti, and De Jong, all 3 of those players were on high wages or high-ish wages in Torres's case. And the leaks that were coming out to the journalist, quote unquote, the Twitter journalist now, talking about Romero, that were about these players, you know, they're this, they're that, they're not good in training. They don't want to leave. They won't leave. They're like, it's bad for the club. You agreed to contracts with all these players, and now you're forcing players. And you saw guys like Gerard Piqué. I think Alba took a pay cut. A couple of the Busquets took a pay cut. You're forcing players to take pay cuts or bullying them into taking pay cuts because of your financial irresponsibility, your recklessness. That to me is a conspiracy that nobody's talking about right now. I mean, Frankie de Jong, they were trying to run him out of the club last year. They said,
it's ridiculous. We
have a fee coming in from Manchester United. We need this money. I think it was like 70 million pounds or somewhere in that direction. And we need this money. And then so you saw them threaten. I believe they verbally threatened litigation with his agents. Said, if you don't agree to this, then we're just gonna take you to court and not pay you. That's what they were saying in August. Yes. I mean, in the end,
they already owed him something like 30 million euros in deferred wages from COVID because he agreed to stop receiving his salary during COVID. And as soon as match day fans were allowed back into the stadium, they were supposed to repay him that money. And they were saying, you need to leave. And he was saying, okay, can you pay me the wages you owe me? And they were going, no, that's why we need you to leave. Yeah. And he went, well, I'm not going then. And so massive smear campaign in the press. Frankie doesn't want to play for us. We don't want Frankie. Blah 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 blah. You're right. It stinks.
I think it was like a three-way pull. I think De Jong wanted to stay at Barcelona, and I think Xavi wanted to keep him. But then the Barcelona higher ups were like, "You're leaving." So then Manchester United came in and said, "We'll take you." And Frank de Jong was like, "I'll consider, but I mainly want to stay at Barca." And the higher ups just like, "No, you're going."
Yeah.
And then eventually he stayed.
I look at that and the bullying that caused, in my opinion, all these players at Barcelona to take pay cuts, because it's like, hey, I don't want to be like smeared through the papers. I just want to play football. Like Busquets and Alba and Piqué, like those kind of guys are like, you know what? Like, we'll just take the pay cut. And then the media would leak it out, just say, so-and-so is good for the club, but Frankie de Jong and Umtiti are bad for the club. You signed a contract with these players. You owe them this money. Like, they don't owe you anything. And I can tell you now that in the United States, with the players' unions that are here, NFL and MLB especially, the unions are as strong a unions as you will find in the entire world. And they would never, ever put up with that kind of bullying. You would have to pay those players, and Barcelona would be in administration. Like,
we haven't even gotten
to fly.
We haven't even gotten to the Messi aspect of this yet. You had tear-filled press conferences with Messi leaving because Barca couldn't afford the new contract. They physically could not get La Liga to sign off on Messi's new contract because they couldn't register him. And tear-filled press conferences. We like proper Pep Guardiola. We cannot replace him. We cannot replace him. And literally 1 month later, they were parading Robert Lewandowski around the stadium, going, look at this wonderful player that we've signed for £1 billion on £1 billion a week. And I think the telltale factor of all of this is Lionel Messi went to PSG, had 2 very difficult seasons, then was available on a free transfer. He had the option to go back to Barcelona, and no disrespect to the MLS, went to America instead because he did not want to go back to that Barcelona team and sit there and go, I don't like this. It wasn't the team that he loved. He wasn't the team that he literally grew up in La Masia from 12 years old, with all of the principles of that academy, the principles of that wonderful club now being run by a bunch of tin pot accountants who do not have a calculator. That's what that club is.
It's very true. And actually, in an article we have coming up about the best teams in history, we discuss how Pep Guardiola walked away from Barcelona for pretty much the same reason. I mean, they did run him out of town on one level, but he was producing the best football that they've ever seen. And in Barcelona history, that is really saying something. Not only that, but it was a almost completely homegrown team. And Pep Guardiola, when the new president came in, stepped out and was like, I don't like where this is going. And even now, you think that he wouldn't leave Manchester City to go to Barcelona if Barcelona wasn't like playing above board and back to the club they were before. He'd be there in a second. He's a lifelong Catalan. Absolutely. So Barcelona, for me, should be under investigation, probably should be in administration. And I think they would be if they were in England. I think La Liga is covering things for them. And that whole like back and forth between the Tepes and Laporta is nonsense and is theater, because I think that La Liga is covering for Barcelona. But all right, third.
Look, maybe you need to put in a good word of the State Department. If they can take down Sepp Blatter, they can take down Barcelona.
If you run a dollar, through the United States, if they came on tour in the United States, you probably could get the state. I know. I know. So you could probably get the United States State Department in there if there's tax money to be had. But all right, guys, let's move to the third scandal. All right, Scott, I'm gonna let you kick it.
Well, so speaking of things that didn't go to investigation, this one did. Samir Nasri was investigated by UEFA and then eventually suspended for 6 months for breaking anti-doping laws.
He didn't though, did he?
But it wasn't the fact that he got investigated that makes this scandal good. It was why he got investigated. So in December 2016, Samir Nasri's girlfriend at the time hacked his Twitter account. And she proceeded to tweet saying that she booked him an appointment at a place called Drip Doctors to get IV fluids because he wasn't feeling well. And she referenced that he got a bit more than an injection there. There's maybe a happy ending or something.
Scandalous.
And then Drip Doctors decided to reply and say, this did not happen. And then she kept replying and said, this did happen. I booked the appointment. I have phone messages from one of your employees messaging him. She name dropped the employee as well. And then Samir Nasri got his Twitter account back. But because of this, UEFA investigated him for getting this IV drip, and apparently there was stuff in the drip that he wasn't supposed to get, and so he eventually got investigated and got suspended for 6 months, which now he claims is the reason why he retired, because him getting suspended made him lose his love for football.
He's a weird guy.
He was banned for an extra 12 months for that as well, wasn't he? He was given a ban, and then UEFA decided to appeal the ban and gave him an extra 12 months.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
I don't think he didn't actually take anything that he shouldn't have. There was nothing performance enhancing in there, was there?
No, it was like it was nutrients in the sterile water that he wasn't supposed to have. That was literally it.
Was it the method of delivery that they had a problem with? That was intravenous?
Maybe, I don't know. I know he got 500 millimeters of water dripped into him. So
I think it would just be the bottom line, right? That a foreign substance that was banned entered your body. Whether you knew it or not. I think that happens occasionally in sports, but most of the time when you hear stuff like that, it's usually
like Onana, he
malicious.
Took the wrong pill. Like he
took his wife's
pregnancy pill and got banned.
It wasn't a pregnancy pill. It was a post-pregnancy thing. It was antidepressant. It was a postpartum antidepressant pill.
Oh, something like that, yeah. But he was meant to take a Nurofen or something
aspirin.
for head, aspirin for his headache, and just having his head.
To be fair, if I'd done that, I would have claimed that it was my wife's depression pills as well, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, you would use you think about it, you'd use anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in the United States, we had a guy in the NFL get caught. Let's say that he was impersonating for a pee test, he was wearing a certain
contraption
that made everything look like one thing, looked like male genitals.
I hope he gave himself more credit.
Yeah, it was an entire contraption because the urine tests here are witnessed. So he had a whole contraption, and he got caught with it in an airport. And that's what you pull that out of your bag at an airport, and you're in line there at security. It's like, what is that? And you just another day in the airport, I guess. But yeah, we got some. When it comes to these kind of doping things, there's a lot of creative ways that guys will figure it out. It sounds like Samir's going down with the ship, though, saying that it was inadvertent. But yeah, all right, guys.
Can I do an honourable mention for bigger scandals, because it's the one that I remember from when I was in my formative years in the world of football, and I remember thinking, I don't think there's a bigger news story than this on the planet. And I was probably about 19, 20 at the time, and it was the height of Wayne Rooney's powers. He was fresh in the Man United shirt, and it was the granny prostitutes. Do you remember this?
Yeah,
he paid £140 to some elderly prostitutes. And the stupid thing is, he was dragged through the media, and rightly so, and he was lambasted left, right, and centre. And then a few years later, he went and did it again, because why not? Why not? That has to get an honourable mention for stupidest scandal, at least.
Yeah,
it does. And I remember watching the Wayne Rooney documentary on Amazon Prime when it came out, and I was trying to describe it to my dad, and I was like, basically what it is you have this brilliant play from Wayne Rooney for about 10 minutes, and then you have 5 minutes of him apologizing for a hooker tabloid story, and then you have 10 more minutes of excellent play, and then 5 more minutes of a hooker tabloid story. It's like, that's the way the whole documentary went. And in the end, you're in the kitchen with Wayne and his wife, and it's super uncomfortable. He's staring at his fingernails. She's saying, we're through this. We're past it. Meanwhile, right around the time the documentary came out was the the video came out of a hooker farting on Wayne Rooney, and it was just it's
yeah.
just another segment, of Wayne Rooney's
Has
career.
there been, apart from like in the 70s when George Best was shagging every Playboy model that moved, has there been a footballer recently that has had a career with so many different scandals in it? Because you've got the one with that Phil Bardsley knocked him out in his kitchen.
Yeah.
And then he did the famous celebration on the pitch, didn't he? Can you think of a footballer that's had more scandals in their career? Different scandals as well, not the same thing. Because you've got the It's Rebecca Vardy thing from Colleen.
Yeah, it is
Balotelli,
really
yeah.
Well, this is so comprehensive, though. Like you said, LA, like Wayne Rooney's are like across the board. He's got his wife involved in a couple of them. He's got old hookers. He's got young hookers. He's got getting knocked out. Yeah, he's got. His are incredible. They are. It's really amazing, and maybe most amazing of all is he's Teflon. Like he's still considered the greatest, probably one of the greatest Premier League players ever. He's still highly respected as an up and coming manager, even though he's in the U.S. He's kind of bulletproof. So I mean,
Balotelli's another great shout. I remember the story of him setting off fireworks in his house and setting fire to his own mansion.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I think there are more Balotellis out there, like guys that do outrageous things. Than there are Wayne Rooney's.
My favorite Balotelli story, just before we sign off, was when he was walking through this. He was driving through Manchester, and he was pulled over by the police. And it's Balotelli, so of course they searched his car, and he had like a suitcase with like 100 grand in it. And the police officer said, "Why are you carrying this much cash?" And he just went, "Because I'm rich." Just okay, yeah, sure, 100 grand just on your passenger seat. Just because I'm rich. Why wouldn't I?
That's going to be us when everyone subscribes to this podcast.
They should subscribe to this podcast just for more Balotelli stories.
And subscribe, absolutely. All right, guys, so that's it for our scandals. I like the range we had there. I thought that was really good. And I'm looking for some letters from Barcelona's lawyers in the near future.
Yeah.
That's it for us today, and we'll see you on the next one.